seated. Good evening. It has been the custom at Amherst to award a Master of Arts degree to faculty who have reached the rank of full professor and who were not themselves graduates of Amherst College. The custom derives in part from a desire to pay tribute to their distinction as teachers and as scholars. The custom also shows the pride that Amherst College feels in its full professors. We hope in this way also to bring our faculty closer into the college. Before we bestow the honorary degrees today on 2 Amherst faculty who were promoted to the rank of full professor, I also want to acknowledge Professor David Hall, a distinguished alumnus of the college who was also promoted to full professor this past spring. Custom prevents us from awarding him a second Amherst degree, but it does not prevent us from expressing our pride in his accomplishment and our congratulations to him through our applause. Professor David Hall. Thank you for identifying yourself. And now for the awarding of the honorary degrees. David Ernst Schneider, Department of Music. Sarah McCum-Turgeon, Department of Psychology. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you too the degree of Master of Arts, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations again. Before a musical interlude, I'd like to also take a moment as I begin, once again, to thank Dean Gregory Call for his service to the college as interim president of Amherst, not only for his service as interim president, but for his dedication to this college in many roles over many, many years. Thank you to Greg Call. beautiful. Thank you very much. Good evening again, and welcome. I have just a few simple messages for you tonight, our faculty, staff, and the class of Irene. The first is this: I am glad to be one of you. In my first 10 days in Amherst, I have found the college to be magical. I have had occasion to appreciate its beauty, its friendliness, and its intellectual intensity. I arrived in Amherst on a rainy, dark night about 10 days ago to find that my transition had been made easier by the competence, the thoughtfulness, the kindness, really, of the staff at the President's House and in the President's office, also the staff at the museum and the staff in facilities. They had unpacked many of the hundreds of boxes that arrived from Madison, Wisconsin on the day before. And they had placed my things in a way that allowed my dog, Oscar, immediately to disappear into a house in which he had never been and find his favorite toy on another floor. Well, he had a smell of home. And I thank all of them, by way of that little displacement onto Oscar, for their kindness toward me. I have loved being here for 10 days. The first thing I did was get briefed on preparedness for the hurricane. I observed again how dedicated, how able, and thoughtful the staff and administration of the college are. On Saturday, I took one of my several late-night walks to the War Memorial, or Memorial Hill, as I believe you call it. Late night would not be late for those of you sitting in the balcony. I took that walk, and on my way across the quad was recognized by a member of the staff in the Dunya Student's Office who introduced me immediately to a new student from Zambia. I returned to the memorial this past Saturday night and was talking with friends about whether there might be any ROTC students at Amherst College and about what it means to have a professional military. No sooner had we ended our discussion and concluded that there are probably no students at Amherst who take part in ROTC than two new students appeared at the War Memorial and explained when asked about their interest that they were taking ROTC courses at UMass Amherst. We had a delightful conversation, and I thank them both for their willingness to talk about their interests and experiences. On Monday, those of you who were new students and I had the pleasure of listening to Senator Christopher Coons talk about the nation's political ills and make a passionate plea for a renewed sense of the public good. I was impressed that night by your avid interest in Senator Coons. I was impressed by your questions, and I was impressed that you requested more time with him and that he agreed to speak with you well past midnight. I chose not to join the later exchange. I was also treated that night to Austin Surratt's questions to Senator Coons over dessert, and during the earlier dinner to Professor O'Hara's description of the course she'll be offering this semester on the biochemical effects of stress. I was treated to conversations with several of our students and received one of the loveliest notes from a student I've ever received, from Rachel. I have loved the frequent and almost offhanded references to Emily Dickinson and Robert Frost. I have loved the pealing of the chimes. I have loved Jack Cheney's laugh. I have loved seeing Richard Wilbur's name on the door of a faculty office in Johnson Chapel. I have been inspired by the programmatic and architectural promise of a new science center. fascinated by Lizzie Barker's detailed descriptions of the art in the President's House and the stories about programs to come in the Mead Art Museum. I received and read a note and an essay from William Pritchard, and I was thrilled. I have been amused over the course of these 10 days by Greg Call's invitation to take what he calls the geodesic route from Converse Hall to Alumni House, by the orientation event called Voices, upper class students' parodic performance of new students' essays. Did you all enjoy that? Yes. I did too. It was hilarious. But it also showed the talent and the thoughtfulness we have among our new students, even while you put up with being parodied. I've loved seeing the play of light and shadow on the grounds of this campus and on the buildings when I leave Converse Hall at night, being welcomed home into the light of this gorgeous house across the street, which I hope to share with all of you over time. I have felt comforted by the trees everywhere, which seem to impose a certain silence and enjoin a certain humility. I conclude at the end of my first 10 days at Amherst College and my first week of orientation, realizing there will be many more weeks of orientation to come, that I have joined a community that loves the work of liberal arts education. A community that is excited by the world of ideas and the promise of reasoned debate. This love of the work is not apparent everywhere in higher education, and it has been a treat to experience how palpable it is at Amherst College. I hope we can work well together, not only to preserve it, but to enhance its contributions. We're living through a very challenging time. We, the class of Irene, begin at Amherst College at a challenging time, but also at a time of remarkable opportunity. We also start at a period, yet another period, where there are vicious attacks on higher education and on the liberal arts, both from within the university world and from without. And you may be thinking, therefore, that I idealize Amherst College at my peril. My view is that we will have plenty of time going forward to talk about criticisms of higher education and to talk about the challenges to the liberal arts, to take seriously the legitimate challenges and to fight back against the illegitimate ones. What I'd like to do tonight is simply invite all of us to treasure what Amherst has and what Amherst is, an unapologetic love of inquiry wherever it leads, without artificial obstacles to its pursuit or to those who would pursue it. When I was introduced here this summer, I emphasized that the love of learning does not guarantee that the learning will be easy. All of us will find it difficult at times to do the unlearning that makes genuine growth possible. And why will we find the unlearning and the learning difficult at times? Because what we think we know and what we think we believe, we have learned in our attachments to the people who have been most important to us in our lives. And so our old ideas and perspectives, even our ignorances, are things to which we're attached because of our attachments to the people from whom we have so much implicit learning. Sometimes those views are hardened by the fear of separation from those we love. They're hardened by fear of rejection by those from whom we have learned. We are giving ourselves, nevertheless, the opportunity to experience the exhilarating, even if occasionally painful, moments when our efforts to embrace new knowledge put us at odds with others and even put us at odds with ourselves. How will you respond to those moments? How will any of us respond to those moments? There's no one in this chapel who has finished the difficult work of learning and thought or change. Some people will respond to the fear of loss or the fear of what they believe is their coherent thought by digging in their heels, resenting and resisting change, even when it seems part of becoming who you are. Sometimes, out of fear and loyalty, we'll do the opposite and reject wholesale what we thought we believed and the attachments we thought we had formed. That wholesale rejection and opposition is always only a reversal of attachment and always worth examining for its emotional grounding and its lack of basis in reason. Learning is not linear, it's not additive, it's not always easy, not the kind of learning that Amherst College will expect of all of us. And it's going to be important that we help each other as we're transformed by this learning. Let ourselves be transformed and let us help ourselves in that process. Why? So that we can meet the challenges of the world around us. As for the world around us, it is not really around us, it is in us, of course. It's tempting to offer a litany of the various challenges. We could all do it. We could do it almost chorally. The economic situation is terrible, worse in the United States and Europe than expected. The stock market appears to have been unnervingly volatile with wild swings between fear and greed. Arab Spring is remaking the world. It holds out this fall great hope and promise and great uncertainty. We are approaching the 10th anniversary of 9/11. Washington and the media are focused on a presidential election that's more than a year away. And in the face of tremendous problems, it seems there's a very little, shockingly little, deliberative public discussion that would be adequate to these problems and the confusion that great portions of the American public feel. So much news and commentary seems to take the form of alarm, predicting the next disaster, intent on using the spectacle of calamity to create a sense of dread and anger. And we see those forms of dread and anger everywhere. The media appears to be appealing to the affect junkies that we have perhaps become, or that it would be profitable to them to have us become. One of the urgent questions before us is how to understand upheaval and change, and how to help direct it without resorting to easy forms of coherence or ideological rigidities. How instead to synthesize increasing levels of complexity in ways that are meaningful, adaptable, increasingly adequate, and sometimes even elegant. The country, whatever that means, seems to be mired instead in short-term thinking, emotional reaction, confusion about what matters. In the winner-take-all society, as Robert Frank has called it, we have become undisciplined and thoughtless, consumer-oriented, and focused on rankings of everything for our sense and definition of value. We lack a sense of futurity that would inspire consideration of the consequences of our actions. We are not fully present to ourselves, to one another, to the future, or to the larger good. I say that as if it were true across the board. The same we that I invoke in these laments could also be the subject of a sentence that says, we long to hear reasonable accounts of political, economic, social, and cultural change. We long to be part of guiding it. We long to have an impact on the challenges we face. We long to hear serious deliberation among our elected officials. In the meantime, those of you in the class of 2015 are among those who will invent new ways to communicate and to deliberate, using, as Senator Coons pointed out, new technologies which as yet do not seem to have found their route to the kinds of community that we need to build. If I say the liberal arts is crucial to meeting our challenges, it's not just because it's required at a convocation at Amherst College. It's because I believe it, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. I don't know where else we'll find the intellectual support for the creative and disciplined thinking that we need to help ourselves out of what seems like a morass. Senator Coons described a day in the life of a senator as a space of utter distractedness. I'm sure that our new students remember that. Utter distractedness, he said. Ideological division is one problem. The lack of any form of deliberation is a bigger one. There is no deliberative body in the chamber, he said. Interactions, if they occur at all, occur in hurried conversations in hallways, interrupted by text messages, phone calls, and ritualized constituent visits. The efforts to reach meaningful compromise are rare, and when they seem on the verge of succeeding, they are quickly undone, he said, by calls from the party disciplinarians. His description of a day in the Senate was an appeal to have the values of the liberal arts extended so that we can reestablish or reinvigorate a genuinely public sphere. It's not going to be enough going forward simply to laud the liberal arts or to talk about their value. In order to have an impact, we're going to have to instantiate the values of the liberal arts on our own campus to the greatest degree possible. And then we're going to have to work together to figure out how to extend the influence of what Amherst has valued into the world more generally. Amherst is a gem. It is an ongoing experiment, one in which we're now about to get involved. It has recognized and acted on the insight, the fact that giftedness is not the province of privilege. It is not the province of any one group or any gender. The failure of governments, institutions, and what we call ordinary citizens to recognize the talent in every community, in every part of the world, and to create opportunity for that talent to flourish is a failure that puts everything good at risk. We need to work in the other direction. We need to enhance Amherst's commitment to access, to affordability, to diversity, to justice, and we need to extend it in ways as yet unthought. I am glad to be one of you. I celebrate and honor each one of you. I look forward to working with you, and I hope together we can make Amherst a push for the change that we need in the world. Thank you very much.